Okay,
All right, thank you. I'd like to call the Plan Commission meeting to order on Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021 at 5:30. Janelle, could you please take roll call?
Bertle,
Here.
Zashki,
Here.
Gretzmacher,
Here,
and Schmitz. At the
Here.
present time, Bill, have you gotten here, Nate?
Lauren will be on later. Lauren just joined the meeting.
Oh, okay. How about Nate? Is he here yet?
He'll be a half hour late.
Mary Kay's joining right now as well.
Okay.
Okay, is there anybody joining us tonight that would like to address the Plan Commission on a non-agenda issue?
I don't see anything.
Okay. Do we have any correspondence?
Yeah, there are two emails that are in the packet. One of them was received from Lynn Johnson. In her email, Ms. Johnson states that she's very concerned about the new condo development that is being proposed for the property below the bluff in Sister Bay. She and her family own a condo unit at Sister Bluff Estates, and for 11 years, they have listened to the noise that comes from the downtown area, as well as noisy construction equipment. Basically, in conclusion, she states, when is enough enough? The other email was received from Sandra Yulner, and in her email, Ms. Yulner asks if the village has given any consideration to the traffic problem in the village. She and her family have owned a condo. Okay, she and her family have owned a condo at Sister Bluff Estate for 40 years and are extremely disappointed that it's impossible to make a left turn on 42 during the summer months, let alone try to find a parking space. In conclusion, she states, it is so sad to watch the ruination of Sister Bay and Door County in general. You have overcrowding problems that need to be addressed now. And that's it.
Okay. All right, then is there a motion to approve the minutes from Tuesday, May 25th meeting as presented? Or does anybody have any corrections or comments?
Do you want to approve the agenda, Denise?
Oh, did I not do that? I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. There we go. Yep, that's because I scrolled down. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I so move.
Motion by Gretzmacher,
Second.
second by Ward. All in favor, respond with an aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Now is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Ward,
Second,
second by Gretzmacher. Any further discussion? All those in favor respond with an aye.
aye.
Opposed? Carried. Still scrolling, bear with me. Okay, item number 1. Discussion regarding a request from Don and Trudy Cox, Christian McWinney, and Emmeline Cox to schedule a public hearing on a proposed certified survey map that will split parcel number 1810008312822K, which has been assigned an address of 10554 Fieldcrest Road, and parcel number 18126000001L1 into 2 separate buildable lots. Bo?
Yep, so we did receive an updated CSM request from Don Cox. This one showing and meeting the requirements to meet the code of 20,000 square feet. If you look at the survey map that was included in the packet, you'll see the existing property line and then the new proposed property line, which does allow both properties to meet zoning code standards. There's a shed that they would be taking on the new property, but in my conversations with Don Cox, that shed will be removed as it's not being used and it's just dilapidated. So they're going to remove that shed if they haven't already. This is one that has come to Plan Commission in the past that did not meet 20,000 square feet and therefore it was denied. So this is the new proposal. Does anyone have any questions?
I'd make a motion to move this to public hearing.
Motion by Shumway,
Second,
second by Gretzmacher. Any further discussion?
I just have one question, Denise. when, in Bo's write-up on, in the background, it says, Plan Commission previously denied that request, so Mr. Cox has worked with the neighboring property owner to the rear to create a new lot layout that meets the 20,000 square foot minimum. I'm just questioning, what does that exactly mean, working with? Is this something where there's a
It's a familial
transaction?
relationship.
It's a what?
It's a familial relationship.
Okay,
It's family, but there's also a transaction that would take place, and that's common with a CSM to acquire new property.
okay. So the transaction hasn't occurred yet, but eventually will.
Yeah, they need approval first.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 2, discussion regarding a request from Bayland Builders on behalf of Nick and Anna Nistor for an addition on the back of the building that houses Sister Bay Mobile and Sub Express that is located at 2579 South Bay Shore Drive. Oh,
Yep, so this is just another part of the addition that's going on. The property owners did acquire a new cooler system and wanted to put it on their property. They received that from the old Fred and Fuzzy's business. And with speaking with them, I requested that be enclosed because of the business in the back and the residential in the back. So instead of doing a shed, they're simply doing another addition to the building. This one's very straightforward to match the building. It does not impact any setbacks nor parking, as it's just considered storage.
any questions? Is there a motion to approve as presented?
I so move.
Motion by Gretzmacher, second by Ward. All those in favor respond with an aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item 3, discussion regarding the development agreement for the residential condominium development Jim Selinsky will be constructing at 10592 State Highway 57. Bo?
Yeah, so just if you go through the packet, or if you've gone through the packet, you'll see that the next thing was the Selinsky grading and drainage plan that has been reviewed and approved by staff. So we wanted to include that, as that would need to be part of the development agreement language in there. So you'll also see the updated and final plans showing the adjusted widths from the garage that will be included in the new development agreements. But we simply wanted to put the development agreement in front of Plan Commission for review and to discuss any potential changes. It's a pretty standard development agreement. Denise, I know you had spoken to Janelle earlier about an excerpt that was missing from the standard development agreements. Janelle did go through it and update that to have that language previously put in. So if you'd like to see that, I can share my screen.
Yes, please.
Okay.
So this has been updated since we've received our packets, yes?
Yes.
Yes, when I was reading it, there were some things that when Janelle and I rewrote the template for the development agreement that I could not find. And so I called and talked to her, and she found, luckily she saved the original to a jump drive because the original on the server had been changed. So we should be all good moving forward.
So I have a read-only copy here, just so everyone knows. So if there's any changes that need to come up, we'll just need to take notes and do them off camera. Okay, so the language that changed is under section 1, subsection B. Can everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did you freeze on us or what?
Nope. And so I just wanted to give everyone a second to read that. I know Jim Selinsky's online too. So
Well, I
Jim,
think you need to point out.
What changed and why?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
it's from further further, if at any time the developer decides or desires to make interior renovations that will affect the number of bedrooms and or bathrooms the given unit will contain, a referral has to be made to the plan commission. But before any of the required work commences, impact fee calculations must be made and related to zoning and building permits issued.
makes
Why
sense.
is this in a development agreement? Why aren't we actually approving the number of bedrooms and or bathrooms right now?
This would simply be if someone else purchased the property and wants to make any changes or renovations to it, that they understand they have to come to plan commission for
Then you
review.
have to strike if at any time the developer. It's not the developer. I mean, that doesn't read properly.
Well,
Well,
it also mean if they change it before the building is completed. If mid project they decide to change the layout, they have to come back to plan commission.
Mary
Yeah,
Kay,
because-
remember back in December, I think it was, when this came back, when you guys were talking about the property on Mill Road, where some changes had been made to the units, that's why this was put in there. And you guys had recommended that the board amend the template.
The template itself.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Because
So
Bo,
this
correct me
is
if I'm
not-
wrong, but the development agreement only really, it takes place during construction until
Correct,
occupancy is granted, right?
correct.
So that makes sense because, and then Mary Kay, there are site plan that detail the number of bedrooms and everything. So
Right, I don't see how this would apply to anyone in the future other than you,
that-
Jim.
I misspoke there. And then Jim, I know you had some other other changes that you would like to make, and so this would be the time to just discuss that.
okay, great. So just a few minor things. First of all, there will be actually an LLC that's early on, I think, on the first page that that my LLC. I'm the sole member, but that I've created for the production or development and the marketing of these units. So that's one, and we'll give you the name of that,
Okay.
after that if you want. And then the other thing is that this states the lighting plan and so on approved at April 27th. We've gone through a couple revisions since then, so I guess I would ask that. In fact, last week, Steve Thomas, the architect, delivered the development agreement version of these, and I would think that we'd only want that latest and greatest version
Correct.
that is hopefully approved tonight to be the ones that are referenced here.
Correct. The latest plans, the most recently approved plans will be the only ones included in the development agreement, and that's what the board would get.
Okay, great. And then the only other,
June 21st then.
yeah, 21st, 22nd, what is this? Yes, thank you.
22nd, I'm sorry.
Right. And then there actually was a request from the Plan Commission early on when we first started talking about this, that we would create sidewalk, I think, extending the existing public sidewalk and then around the corner. And that actually isn't referenced anywhere in the conditions. So I kind of wanted to, this is under the keeping us honest. It is in our site plan, and it's important here because there are clauses that deal with infrastructure that the developer is responsible for. So I guess we should find a place for that.
Okay, so what I'll do then at the end of sub A, Jim, I'll say it should be noted that the developer has agreed to construct a sidewalk, or the plan commission directed?
No, that would be that the plan commission imposed a condition of sidewalks needing to be extended.
Okay, the plan commission imposed the condition that the sidewalks in the area in question must be.
No, be extended down Canterbury to the property line.
Okay, sidewalk shall be extended down the property line to Canterbury Lane.
To the property line on Canterbury Lane.
Okay. Down, okay, so I'll say, it should be noted that the plan commission imposed the condition that the sidewalk shall be extended down to the property line with Canterbury Lane. Is that right?
Really, we can touch
It's
that.
actually until the driveway on Canterbury. I don't know if that's considered the property, because actually the property line is beyond it. So it's, if you want to say around the corner to the driveway on Canterbury. Or
Okay.
something like that.
What's that? the
What driveway, and do we have a parcel ID number?
It's as documented on the plans. It's on the site.
Okay.
It's like a
This one.
secondary
All
drive.
right, got it.
Okay, to the
Those are the only-
driveway on Canterbury Lane. Or that by Canterbury Lane, should I say?
On Canterbury Lane.
Pardon?
On Canterbury Lane.
Okay, so then it will say, it should be noted that the plan commission imposed the condition that the sidewalk shall be extended down to the driveway on Canterbury Lane.
Correct.
To
Okay,
be completed by,
That's part of the development agreement.
okay, and when is it, where is it? Where
we
is
have
it?
to talk about that yet.
We haven't gotten that far.
Okay. There is precedence that you are not allowed to have an occupancy permit before any sidewalk is completed. So I would expect that go into this agreement.
That's one of the conditions later on in there.
Sorry, it's hard to move
Yeah.
with you and move through the packet that I have. So.
That's fine, it's no big deal.
And then subsection F here, the highlighted part, that would be at this meeting, so that would be the 22nd. And then we would need Jim, if you can just contact us and put the type, the approved building materials. That was all in the packet as well. That was part of the review.
Bo, up above there on page 2, you need to know when the building is gonna be constructed prior to when Jim anticipates that's gonna be.
Right here, number 1. Do you have a completion date, Jim?
So in talking with Steve, who couldn't make it to the meeting today, we expect by spring of next year, but there's something that references a zoning permit extending out 2 years. And so we would ask that this, the final termination of this, even though it's not going to take this long, but to be 24 months as well, to coincide with that zoning permit, 24 months from issuance of the building permit.
I disagree with that.
I concur with Denise.
I'd like it to be done, early spring next year as well. If we say, well, can we say 12 months from the issuance of the, again, building permit? At this point, since we don't have that yet, the assumption is we're going to start this fall, in August or early September. But just trying to protect us so that we don't have to come back for extensions and so on. But there is something in here that talks about the zoning permit.
Correct.
extension.
Right. They're only valid for 24 months.
Right.
Mhm. Okay, so you plan on starting this fall, but are hoping to finish spring of 22?
Correct.
Okay, then I would say that fair assumption that a completion date then could be August 1st of 2022.
Could we do, let me think here. So we've got building permit. I'm not sure how long the extra steps are that we still have. Could we say 12 months from the issuance of the building permit?
No,
Jim, that building permit that won't be difficult to secure.
Okay. All right. Could we say September 1st? I
Sure.
expect. okay,
September 1st is fine.
Okay.
September 1st. Okay.
2022.
2022. Okay.
Jim, do you know what those materials are right offhand? What kind of siding are you gonna have?
Yeah, it's log and cedar siding.
Okay, log and cedar. How about the color?
Well, I guess natural or There, you know what, there was something in the packet. There were two sort of swatches in the packet, I guess you could call them.
Okay, how about the
Uh,
balconies? What are they gonna, are you gonna have balconies?
Yes, there's one in the back, and that's going to be brown Trex.
Janelle, all that detail is in the plans already, so we can just pull them. We don't have to do that through this meeting.
Okay,
Are we actually approving the development agreement, or is this was just our first look?
no, you're.
I think this was just our first look, wouldn't you think?
I would think,
Well,
because I would want all of those blanks to be filled in.
typically what you do is that's why we go through everything. And you guys know what's going in there and the highlighted blanks, and then you recommend that it be done as amended, and I would present it to you, Denise, remember? And you'd review it before we put it in the board packets.
Okay,
Normally, we have a developer in front of us with samples, and that is not the case here.
That's just because we're on Zoom, you know, we have all
So
that. That was part of the review.
Can we
before.
come into the office and
Yeah,
look before we make this decision? I mean, again, none of us have seen this, or
Well,
or if you've been in the office, you've seen, I apologize, I've been busy.
But
No,
there's,
I mean,
there's stuff in the packets, Mary Kay, if you look. There's.
I have that in front of me, Janelle. The only problem is we've had such a discrepancy between color and everything else on paper and Zoom.
yeah, because those samples and colors have been in for a couple months as a part of our submission. And
Right, Jim,
Yes.
I totally agree, and I apologize. It's just that, you know, we have not been meeting in a group, so we cannot see with our own eyes what it is. I mean, are these samples up at the village hall, at the admin building?
No, we only have the pictures that were provided,
Okay.
page 79 of the packet.
I have a question on the site plan. Trying to see what page it is, but the computer is not. It's the one with the landscaping plan.
Mhm.
I cannot zoom in or out, so I can't see what the page is right now.
Page 70.
I cannot tell from the landscaping plan. And when I drove by, there's huge lilac trees that are on the corner.
Mhm.
And I was wondering, are they being removed, or are they going to be able to be saved?
I'm trying to see here. I think that might be right where garage for unit 1 is. The driveway is existing a little bit wider, and so I think it's actually kind of right where that driveway is. I mean, we can see if we can move them, you know, and save them. I think Steve has mentioned that we could do that with trees and things, because you're right, those are pretty nice.
Yeah, I mean, they've just been there forever, and it would be a shame to lose them. I don't know that you can replant them. I don't think they're too big of a clump. But that was just my question.
So I do have a sample up there of this siding, at least the log siding that I could drop off in the office, you know, the next couple days. It's stained and so on, and it's the exact material.
From looking at the materials that Jim provided to us, I show that the color is going to be sequoia and driftwood, and that the shingles are architectural. And is that considered gray, Jim?
Yeah, it's a dark gray. Yeah.
Okay. And then.
Well, there should be an actual name to the shingle, the manufacturer and the name.
Yeah. Is it
Can you
on
get
there?
that to us?
Yeah, we don't have that, Jim.
Okay. I'll have to find that.
The trim, what material is that? Is that?
That's cedar,
Cedar? Okay,
stained cedar, right?
okay. Because then I have everything that can fill it in if you want me to read it back. So that you know what you're.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so the siding is log and cedar, the color is sequoia and driftwood. The balcony material is Trex, the trim is cedar, the shingles are architectural, and Jim is gonna get us the color, but it's a dark gray.
And just to be clear, the two colors are, the one is the trim. I think the sequoia is the siding, and then the trim is the darker.
Okay,
Considering the development agreements that have been held up by not providing actual material, ID numbers, etc., I'm a little bit leery about approving this without seeing the materials with my own eyes. There's just too much precedence here over the last 6 years.
Well, is there any reason that these blanks cannot be filled in, that actual samples can be up at the admin office for anyone to go and review, and this is just tabled until next month? Is there any reason why that would hold up anything?
Not in my mind.
Jim, will that hold anything up for you?
No, I think next month we have to have the condo docs approved or submitted as well. So, right.
Yeah, you could bring this development agreement with all the updates. We'll have the material, and then at next month, we could just recommend this and the condo docs to the board.
That's a good plan.
Then that way the board would get everything at once.
Thank you.
We need to make a motion to table.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Lost my place in what item this is.
Jim, in the meantime, we'll send you the updated development agreement with all of the blanks filled in. And then if you can get me the materials, I'll send out an email when I have them.
Okay.
I would make a motion to table item 3 on the agenda, the discussion regarding the development agreement for the residential condo development that Jim Zelensky will be constructing at 10592 State Highway 57.
Motion by Ward,
Second.
second by Schmitz. All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, I don't know if everybody saw, but item number 4, we will need a motion to table. They did not come in with all the documentation that we needed for this meeting. So is there a motion to table until next month?
I so move.
Motion by Gretzmacher,
Second.
second by Zashki. Any further discussion? All those in favor respond with an aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. I am continuing to scroll.
Next one's on page 119.
Thank you, because I was only on 80.
Save-
Okay, item number 5, discussion regarding the 14 village-owned lots along Ava Hope Trail, Ava Hope Court, and Northwoods Drive.
Yeah,
Oh.
so to summarize this, I've had some questions about whether it's 13 lots or 14 lots. The total amount that the village owns is 14 lots. But the lots that we would be discussing here would exclude lot number 1 for right now on page 120 with the outlines there with the yellow outlines. This discussion has happened several years ago and kind of started, I think, in 2019 when the village acquired them from the bank from Keith Garrett's old project. These are all zoned multifamily R2 at the moment, and they are under 20,000 square feet. I went through some old Keith Garrett documents from his original plans, and the latest ones that I saw had duplexes split between the properties here. And so that's why these lots don't meet the code size, the standard code size. The discussion had come up on what options the village may have to discuss on making these lots usable. And staff came up with 2 recommendations. And number 1 would be CSMing the 13 lots in order to make them 20,000 square feet and reclassifying them to R1 single family residential. But in doing so, your lot sizes would cut them down from 13 total to about 7, and a few water and sewer lines would need to be abandoned there. The second option would be rezoning them to R4 small lot residential, which I do not believe the village has, and creating a PUD to design homes specifically to fit these lots that would be smaller. By doing so, by doing a PUD, we wouldn't need to abandon any lines, and we would be able to control a little bit more of what goes on these properties. I know that Denise and I have had some conversations with Door County Housing Trust, and I know Representative Mariah is on the call as well. I know that the Housing Trust had some interest in some properties as well, to do some attainable housing on these lots. Our Plan Commission chair wanted to find time to discuss them, and luckily this meeting was not 20 agenda items long, so here we are.
So yes, beyond what's in the packet about making a recommendation, to the village board on rezoning R4, is looking at the layout of the lots. I wanted to know if the Plan Commission wanted to chime in on having an opinion on how many of these lots and which lots that we could donate to the housing trust. And maybe at some point in time when lumber prices come down, that something could be built on them and we could get some workforce housing homes. My opinion was, out of all of the lots, and I guess I have to reference then back the packet, would be lots 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. Those 6, I think would be most appropriate for the housing trust. And
Denise, why do you say chime in? Why do you say that this body of government would chime in? I'm confused by that. Has a decision already been made?
no, but that's why we're starting the conversation here. I'm getting a little bit of pressure from the village board.
In what regard? Please describe what pressure you are getting from the village board.
To come up with a plan on how many of the 13 lots the village would like to donate, so that the village could market the other lots, seeing that we still have a loan out on this property.
This is the first time this has come before the Planning Commission. I'd like to see any and all minutes, documentation, and correspondence in regards to these conversations.
Those would be publicly available through the internet site.
I'm trying to think.
They should be provided in our package right now.
Well, the only time it's actually been discussed in open session is at the last land acquisition committee meeting.
So when is this being discussed?
Well, we're discussing it here tonight to see if the Plan Commission has an opinion.
Right, but you asked us to chime in. So I am trying to find out what I can look at in order to make an educated decision, especially since we just went through the exercise on PUDs, saying that they were something that you absolutely opposed for the village of Sister Bay.
When somebody else is doing it, yes. I'm not in favor of a PUD when a developer comes with a PUD. But when the village owns the property and has the control over it, that is a whole different ball game. Unfortunately, unless we change the wording in R4, which requires it only to be a PUD, I don't know how else we go or get around that.
Right,
So-
but these aren't R4 right now. We don't have R4 right now.
Right, and that's also the conversation that we're having tonight about these lots on, do we believe that R4 would be appropriate here for all of these lots and make that
Denise,
recommendation?
you can't just throw this out at the planning commission tonight. As much as I have worked with you and Mariah on this for 3 decades, we need more background on this as a planning commission. You can't just ask us to make a decision on something and just make allusions to it.
Well, I don't think that we're looking for an answer tonight. This was just an opportunity for the plan commission to start the discussion. In my discussion with the plan commission chair, the way I interpret it was, we need to start the conversations about planning the use of these village acquired properties so that we can provide a recommendation to the board on next steps on what would be appropriate with these properties.
Absolutely. And is there background for us to look at as to this recommendation that this comes forward in this manner? That is all I am asking for.
Well, as far as background, I would need clarification as to what you'd be looking for, because this was kind of the initial conversation. There's been no background or any other research besides these are the 2 options that you have from staff.
Bo, what initial conversation are you referring to? This is our first conversation. I have to go 100% by what is being presented to me right now.
What I can explain that the board was made aware of us owning these properties through the bankruptcy of Keith Garrett. And in 2019, we acquired the properties and said, we need to sit on them until we have a plan on what we want to do with them. We don't just want to get rid of them, because I believe the board wanted to have some control on what was going on in this property until the other areas were being developed. We just didn't know what that area would look like. Now that we're seeing some multifamily go up on the properties next door with Tim Halbrook, and you're seeing WIDA projects of 47 attainable housing units in a phase 1 go on the larger parcel to the north, it made sense for us to say, plan commission should have an opportunity to see what these lots look like, to discuss potentially what we could do with them moving forward.
Bo, Ava Hope is right next to Stony Ridge. There's always been multifamily right next to this.
Correct, but the overall parcel was part of Keith Garrett's project, which was left vacant after 2 multifamily buildings went up.
That doesn't change the fact it's multifamily. I'm looking for just a little bit more information leading into this discussion and conversation. I'm certainly not opposed to any of this, but this was just kind of thrown at us and we were told to chime in, and I just need to know, where did this come from? Denise, you don't like PUDs, but you like PUDs if the village does them. I just would like a little bit more information, which should be readily forthcoming, I would think.
We have not talked about it in open session at the village board. It has been a financial conversation at the board in closed session. Bo, myself, Mariah, and Pastor Honig had a meeting, I don't know, maybe 3 months ago or something, talking about the housing trust, making that first contact with them, and saying that the village, is interested in working with you somehow, some way. And all we did was, just talk about these lots, about the housing trust. So there really is no deep dive into any previous conversations because they simply have not existed.
And
I
Mary
saw
Kay,
this.
I looked at the agenda item as just a way for us as a commission to just begin discussing how we might envision it being used or done with. You know,
I agree, Rob. I
Rob,
agree.
I totally agree. Open the door. It's just when the words chime in came in that I got completely confused on.
I get that. I get that. I guess
So-
I would,
Just,
I would say here's my thoughts, and then, you know, anyone else can share theirs. And again, I'm coming in, I wasn't part of anything leading up to this, you know, in the meeting Denise referenced or whatever, but my thoughts are, option one seems better because you're, you know, keeping it to the 20,000 square feet area. Now, if you go down to 7 of those lots, then being 20,000 square feet, I think we need to consider and discuss and think about whether we would, in essence, want to donate or to some degree transact or sell. I think we need to partner together with the trust and see if donors would be willing to pay whatever nominal fee or fee we would agree we would be looking for those lots, which would certainly be a good price, but drive some revenue for the village. And in that, how would we go about using those? If we transacted those through somebody making a donation to the trust, in my opinion, instead of deciding which ones here or there, if we go down to 7, let's look at think about how could all 7 be affordable housing? And in the context of that, how could 2 or maybe 3 of those 7 units be structured so that they would be available to community use, perhaps taking into consideration, for instance, we know from the annual reports of the fire department and the fire board reports, et cetera, we've lost, I think, a half a dozen younger family units starting, looking to make roots somewhere, employees of EMS, because they can't find anywhere to live up here that's affordable. They've either gone to Green Bay or they've gone to Sturge. And then now we have EMS calls going out, and God bless our first responders, but a lot of times people wait until, you know, the younger staff that's capable of hoisting a body can come to a scene. We've lost, you know, so many of the workforce that would have been sticking around making a career. If we would consider stipulations in such a structure where not only would 2 or 3 of those be set aside for EMS workers or what have you, but that along with that, to get that affordable housing would be a community service requirement that we could discuss how that would be structured. That's my thoughts on this is, you know, how could we do something dynamic that not only sets up some of those for direct use by the land trust, but also, or by the trust in Sturge, but also make sure that, you know, we're providing some sustenance for people that want to make roots here and start a family and definitely be here.
Rob, where do you think it's a good idea to cut in half the amount of lots?
Why do I think it's a good idea?
Yes.
Well, if they're 20,000, if we get them down to 20,000 square feet, then we don't have to do any kind of changing of the zoning code. And if they're 20,000, if we go to 10,000 square feet, we're starting small. And then, you know, ideally to me, if we want to make these appealing as possible, and if we want them to retain the type of people in affordable housing that we don't just want season to season or for a little time, but to hopefully come in and make a family and a way of life there and help sustain the community. I envision that being a lot easier on a 20,000 square foot lot and the type of a single family dwelling that could be built on there than in a customized smaller one.
I have a question. What size are these lots, the way they're shown here? 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. What
I will
size?
tell you, Marge, because I have all that right in front of me, which
Okay,
is
that's
not
what
in
I'm curious about.
your packet. So 15, 16, and 17, and 14, 13, and 12. The 6 that think that we should donate to the land trust, the size that they are all 10,454 square feet.
Okay, now, since I've been listening to the discussion about, quote, workforce housing since forever, I guess what I'd like to point out here is that a 20,000 square foot lot with the kind of home you would build on it doesn't, in my mind, meet workforce housing standards, because these are individuals who don't want to rent anymore, want to be able to move into a home where they can live for a while, save some money to eventually build or have a more permanent space. And I think I go back to when we were talking about the old ball field, Denise, and the kind of homes we were going to build there. They were small. They
Yes.
were a starter spot. They were a way to come and be able to build up some savings to move then on to a more permanent space. And I think that's the way to me, when I saw this on the agenda, I thought of it in those terms. I guess what I'm saying is that I think of a 20,000 square foot lot as, hey, that's a pretty neat home, okay? That's going to be a little more than the average young couple first starting out can afford. And if our goal is to provide workforce housing to attract young people, to encourage them to see this as a community they wish to live and work in, you have to be smaller. You have to think smaller.
Marge,
And
you don't, you don't, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to point out the neighborhood that I live in and the first house that I bought here, which I bought for $176,000 on 20,000 square foot. And there were multiple homes over a 3, 4, 5 year period that sold for that amount of money. Right now, it is not going to matter how big the lot is. It is going to matter about building costs. I mean, even if we go ahead and say you don't have have to have an XYZ square foot home, you have to have you don't have to have a 20,000 square foot lot. But the other thing that comes up is we have transitional areas, and this is kind of like right next to Northwoods, where you do have more affordable homes, where you've had homes sell for lesser prices in different days. Don't we want a blend? Isn't that what we have always talked about in regards to this? And I agree, Rob, 100% with what you said. We just went through this at DC yesterday. I think Bo was there, Nate might have been there. It's not just emergency service workers, it's teachers, it's, you can't, even the homes that sold for $175,000 8-10 years ago, they're going for over $300,000 now. That is not, that is the economy, that is the market, and that is building materials. So I don't think the actual square footage of the lot really matters that much. And now that we're in this discussion, I would far rather have a blended community where the firefighter or the teacher doesn't feel out of line with the upcoming architect and his wife who's working from home. We've always talked about blended communities like this to start out with, in addition to cluster housing like you described, Marge, but that's just bringing up another subject. I'm just saying that right now, prices, the median home price for the month of May across the US for the first time in history went over $350,000. That's staggering, and it's just going up. So
And you articulated that a lot better than I tried to, Mary Kay, and that's where I'm coming from is, and the other point, that Marge made about, in starting people out in quote unquote workforce housing and spurring them on to want to transition into another house in the community. That's going to be near impossible in this market. And that's where the other thing that I felt about downsizing and making them a little bigger is it gives you a chance to really, it's affordable housing, and that's affordable what it means today, but it gives you a chance to appeal to retaining those key members, of the community that we don't want to lose, that we want to bring in and keep here.
The size of the lot's not going to make any difference on somebody who qualifies for one of these homes.
Right.
The size of the lot simply will not make any difference. And I think it would be a huge mistake for us to take 13 lots that already have sewer and water to them. Now, the 6 that I mentioned are all the same size. There are 3 of them that are a little bit over 13,000. There's one over 15,000. There's one that's almost 17,000. So, you're going to get a mix of possibly the ability to build a bigger home on a bigger lot if you wanted to. And I guess, well, I want to get to Mariah, but I know, David, that you wanted to say something. So
I loved what Marge brought up. My youngest son bought a house, a starter home with a size lot, the sense of community and all of his neighbors are the same. This their first house. They put everything they could into it. I think that nook down at the end there with a smaller lot, we're probably talking 1,500 square feet tops on the house. And I understand that any house right now is going to cost a king's ransom.
Mhm.
That's unfortunate. But I love the idea of a starter home that they're not, maybe they're going to move down the block, or maybe they're going to go a couple blocks away. But I think that the idea of a small lot with a small house and a sense of community amongst those folks, I think is really important.
I think from just I agree with that completely, David. And I think from simply an objective standpoint, if we're talking about having a donation of property here, I think one of the central parts of the conversation is, well, let's establish the need of the community this would be serving for this donation. And there is enormous need, as we all know, for this type of house. And I think that cutting the number in half, especially if sewer and water is already established, I mean, it's already done, and it's why cut the number in half of the people that could be served by this space if the lot size really isn't going to be a determining factor in the type of structure. But I do also definitely want to hear from Mariah.
And one other thing, what kind of money has the city sunk into this? What kind of an investment did we make? Ex sewer and water, what did we have to buy these for?
Well, I just think
nothing.
Nate's
is a
going to say
dangerous
that's
topic
not
here.
our concern.
This is a dangerous topic that we should not be talking about.
Okay, the jury will disregard my comments.
There's a lot of information you can find on that though, David. It's out there.
Got it, I'm on it.
Denise? Okay, now you said there's 6 lots. I've got 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. What's the 6th one?
17.
17.
17? Okay, thank you.
Yep. They're the 6 at the end of the cul-de-sac.
I know we want Mariah to say something, but I've been kind of biting my tongue here for a bit, waiting. a couple of thoughts I have on this is I do not think this should be a solid block of lots. This should be interspersed in there. We shouldn't try and put all these people, I understand it is not exactly a large area to spread them over, but when you try and make pockets like this of affordable housing, you do somewhat isolate people. And again, I understand this is a little bit of a smaller example of it, but I don't think that's a great idea. I think that we need to do this in concert with what else we're doing with the other land acquisitions that we've got going on right now to make sure we're doing a big picture. So I would sure like to find out what's going on with the other land acquisition. Not saying we need to wait for that plan to be all the way done, but to start getting some feedback on there. And I'm sure eventually I'm going to get quoted on this, but I don't think R1 is going to solve our problem. I think R1 is the problem amongst other things. But I do think that a new zoning would make sense there. We need to get the most units we possibly can get from this donation. Because unfortunately, our zoning code is part of the problem. I mean, not just ours, the entire United States zoning code since 1945.
Yep.
I think that those are my key points.
So Nate, so instead of taking the lots that I suggested at the end of the cul-de-sac, you're saying pick and choose and have a mixture amongst the 13 lots, not have them all together. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Mariah, would you like to chime in? And one of the things that I guess I would ask you to talk about is the type and size of a home that your group is looking at building.
Sure. Thank you. Mariah Good. Many of you probably know me from Door County Land Use Services, which is what I do during the day. But I am on the board of the Door County Housing Partnership, and I have to thank Marge and Mary Kay and Denise for the work they did on starting the first one 20 years ago. This is actually the third time that there's been an effort to start a housing trust in Door County, and now it feels like we're finally getting some traction this time. I want to, if it's okay, can I spend like 2 minutes trying to explain how our model works and like
take as much time as you want.
Okay. So basically, obviously, you all know the problem is that there's a gap between what it costs to build or acquire housing and what people can actually afford that are in the workforce in the community. And that sounds simple to fix, or I mean, I guess that's a simplistic explanation, but that really is the problem. So what the Housing Trust does, and we're modeled in most areas of the country, they're called community land trusts. We are obviously not calling ourselves a land trust because that would get confusing. But it's called the community land trust model, and it's being used all over the country. And basically what the Housing Trust would do is we would own the land in perpetuity. We work with a developer to build the home, and then a qualifying family, and they have to go out and get their own mortgage. We don't do the financing. A qualifying family buys the home, but they're buying it at a price that we've determined is affordable for the area median income for the workforce in Door County. So the developer says, okay, and I'm making up numbers here because I know this isn't realistic right now, but the math is easier. So the developer says, all right, it's going to cost me $200,000 to build this house. And they obviously want their $200,000, but the Housing Trust has this, basically a pricing spreadsheet that says, you know what, 100,000 is actually all that's affordable to the size family that would probably be moving into this house. So we, the Housing Trust, have to come up with that $100,000 to fill that gap. It gets a lot more complicated than that, but that's I think the easiest way to explain it, that the developer is going to get what the developer needs to get out of it, but we have to fill the gap between what is affordable to the family and what the developer needs. And when the family buys it, since they're obviously, again, in this simplistic math example, they're getting the house for half off, basically. They're buying it, but it's under the understanding that they're signing what's called a ground lease. So they're leasing the land from us over the life of the term that they own the house. And when they go to sell it, it can only go to another qualifying workforce family, and the equity that they've gained is controlled in the house. So we hired a national consultant to help us figure out the pricing and the resale formula for Door County. They'll basically get 1% per year over the purchase price, plus whatever they've paid down on the mortgage would be the equity that they would gain in the home. And the reason you do that is so that the home is affordable to the next family. So all of the subsidy goes in on the front end of the house. We've been very conservative in how we are setting up our pricing because we don't want to have to come up with a subsidy every time a new family is going in there. And that's one of the issues that those of you that have been involved in housing in the county a long time know. There's a lot of people and a lot of organizations that are working on getting homes or getting people into homes in the county. There have been millions and millions and millions of dollars pumped into Door County with down payment assistance, with WIDA apartments, with all sorts of things. But the thing is that eventually that home goes out on, or apartment or whatever, goes out on the open market and it's not available. It's probably not available because it's too expensive for the workforce family. So that's the beauty of the housing trust model, is that it's affordable in perpetuity. As far as our requirements for families, the households have to have at least one member that's going to work in Door County part-time. So we didn't want to say year-round because so many jobs in Door County are seasonal, but so there's got to be at least one member of the household that has a job in Door County for 1,000 hours a year. We're going up higher than most programs do as far as the area median income levels that qualify, because it's so much more expensive especially in Northern Door. A lot of the programs out there only allow you to make like 80% of area median income. We're going upwards, I think 120 to 130 or 40%, depending on the household size. They have to have it be their primary residence. They can't own land or a house somewhere else. They have to be here at least 10 months out of the year. It cannot be rented on something like Airbnb or VRBO or anything like that, even in the 2 months that they may not be there, if they are gone 2 months. Trying to think what other the qualifying. So you have to have a job. It's got to be your primary residence, and you basically have to live here year round. As far as some of the discussion you were having about, house sizes and everything else, we're currently building 2 homes in partnership with Habitat for Humanity in Sturgeon Bay on lots that are 1/5 of an acre. And one is a 3-bedroom home and one is a 4-bedroom home. I don't know the square footages off the top of my head. I want to say there may be like 1,400 square feet. So it is completely doable when you've got sewer and water to do a house of that size on a lot that is quite small. Because 10,000 square feet is only about 1/4 of an acre. So that's the lots you're talking about that are your smallest ones are bigger than the ones that we're building on right now. So I'd be happy to take any questions. I know that was really quick.
When you,
And I should say we're very, very grateful that you're even considering donating any of these to us.
in a situation like this with us or another community, if we enter into an agreement with you to donate X number of lots, is there any kind of a commitment that we would receive as to how quickly someone would actually, or it would be ready for somebody to come and live in? Or is that just open-ended and it's whenever your trust makes it happen? It could be, in other words, if we did this, would we know 18 months from now a family will be in there in a home, or it could be 2 or 3 years and nothing's done yet?
Are you talking about all of them? I mean, we don't have like a waiting list of families or anything right now. We're just finalizing some of our organizational stuff. Like I said, we're partnering with Habitat right now on 2 houses in Sturgeon Bay. We would commit to trying to do it as fast as we can, but we certainly would not be able to do, multiples within any short time frame.
Okay. So what you're saying then, Mariah, is that, for instance, let's just say, numbers off the top of the head, it would be easier for you to proceed with 1 or 2 of these lots than to have to proceed with 6 right away? Or if there were 6 donated to you, is your organization ready to move forward, trying to make that happen swiftly? Or
I mean, we would like to try and make it happen as swiftly as we can. Part of it is going to be, this is all very new to the county. So it might, from what we understand from startups in other areas of the country, it might take a little while, like a year or 2, for people to kind of get used to the idea and think, oh yeah, I want to buy one of those, or I want to be part of that. Because we're certainly not going to start building unless we have families lined up. we're hoping that once, there's something for people to look at in Sturgeon Bay on the two that we're doing down there with Habitat, that'll start getting people to have something tangible that they can go look at. So, I mean, I know it sounds, the best I can say is that we would do our very best to try and make it happen as quickly as possible. Because we still, in addition to trying to line up the families and get them working through, maybe whatever credit issues and homeownership training and things like that they need to do, we'd have to raise the subsidy and find a developer, which these days is not easy. And I think, I don't know. I mean, maybe if we got really lucky and we all of a sudden had 6 families lined up, ready to go at the same time, that might actually make it easier to find a developer. Like if we said, hey, we're going to try and do 6 at a time, but it may take us 3 years to get, 6 that are lined up. So I think it's going to totally depend on how quickly we can get families through the application pipeline and lining up a developer. We have talked to, there's a nonprofit in Green Bay called NeighborWorks Green Bay that does both management of units and also building of units. And they're quite interested in having some projects in Door County. In terms of construction projects, they are a nonprofit developer. And even though it's called NeighborWorks Green Bay, Door County's in their territory. They do some home buyer assistance or home buyer education for Door County folks now, but they're interested in possibly constructing homes, but they would only be interested probably doing a large handful at the same time, just because they're obviously going to be bringing crews up from Green Bay too.
I think you might discover that if you had homes or the possibility of homes available, the people would come. Sort of a,
course.
if you build it, they will come kind of philosophy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that this model that first of all, I thank you for all the work that you're doing, Mariah, on this project anyway, but I really like the idea of Sister Bay being in partnership with the organization as a prototype for the whole county. I mean, it's good for all of the county to see this in action. And I love that it would be, I know that you're doing the work with Habitat in Sturgeon Bay, but at this scale, I think that it would be really good for the village, to be the place where this prototype was kind of enacted as the project is getting going. I think it all sounds great.
Agreed.
And I would just say, Mariah, I'm philosophically, I'm not opposed in any way to support it or considering supporting donating all of the lots or getting all of the lots over to your trust. In that regard, my question for my fellow commission members would be, if we, as Nate mentioned, intersperse or, selectively pick certain of these lots, leave other lots remaining with the village, in reality, how easy or hard does it become for the village to try and sell those lots to a for-profit developer if the remaining lots, there's half of them, or there's one over here, there's one over there, there's one over there. And if any one either, amongst us or up to and including the village board level, if we were to proceed and people were philosophically opposed to donating all of the lots, can we present or do a deeper dive on, how feasible is it to us to expect those remaining lots to have any kind of significant enough resale value for the village that would support not just offering them all in a dynamic way to the trust?
Mary Kay
Boards could not discriminate in any manner as to any part of anything. So it wouldn't be the realtors. Would the situation itself create a stigma? That has happened in the past.
Yes.
So
See, I wasn't even thinking that way, Mary Kay. I understand how you see that in full scope. I'm just from the standpoint of, how how many people currently come to Sister Bay now looking to buy a 10 to 14,000 square foot lot to build a home on?
My
Would you-
understanding is that vacant lots have been selling, and Mary Kay can answer this far better than I can, but my understanding is that we've seen a demand for vacant lots in the last 6-8 months that has been unprecedented in the county, that people are just gobbling up these properties that have been sitting for years. I don't know if that's accurate.
It's tripled, but it's slowing right now because people know they can't get builders, and they also, read the media, hear the media. Your building prices are tripling. My question would be, I love Nate's idea. I think that's brilliant. Do you put restrictive covenants on the remaining lots to make sure that you can't have it as a second home, that everything that Mariah said, do you mimic that with final village lots? To me, I think that is the answer, and that's how you build a real neighborhood.
I mean,
I have a
I would
yeah,
love, I'm sorry, Mariah, I would love if the Plan Commission thought that we should donate all of these lots. We, as a village, have thrown money at a variety of different projects and things that we deem important for our community. One being spending over, $10 million just on property for the waterfront. Purchasing Pebble Beach, not knowing whether or not we would get any grant money. To me, this is the most important thing. And certainly I would be all in recommending all of the lots, and the village, that we give them all to the housing partnership. I don't know how others feel about that, but I think that would be the largest commitment that this Plan Commission and Village Board could make to our community for sustaining families, workers, you name it.
I agree with you.
I second that.
Yeah, I would as well. And maybe that the conversation can start and end there. I don't know if the village board has a need for ROI, if they're looking to recoup the expense of whatever has been invested, and that might be their work to figure out. But if as a plan commish, we could say, give it all. Heck yeah. I mean, my preconceived notion about this discussion was that was the intention, was that some of these would be donated, but we needed to get back some of the money for the village on what those properties could produce. But if as a plan commission, we could just say all of it, that's great.
Where is the weeded development? I'm looking at another map here. Is it going to be north of the kind of north and east of where these parcels are?
Correct. It's the
Yes.
larger parcel there, David.
So it'll be between the children's center and the apartments that are there.
Correct.
Okay. Does that have any impact on turning these lots into more affordable housing? Or does it help?
Well, those
I
are
think it
rentals.
helps. Because I think we're talking about single family homes where
Yes.
the proposal that Marissa Downs has currently for phase one is apartments, and nothing against apartments at all.
Okay.
And it is going to be, you pay on a sliding scale. Don't ask me what that is. I knew it at one point in time, but I don't anymore. But there is nothing like home ownership. Some people simply will choose to maybe not ever think about home ownership because they just don't want the hassles of home ownership. And there's others that's all that they strive for. I mean, when I first started out here, the only thing that I wanted was a home of my own. And I scrimped and saved and had roommates for many, many years in my old home to help pay the mortgage so that I could build something new. And I attained that goal. And it took a long time to do it. But that was my goal. It's not everybody's goal, but I'm sure that there's other people out there just like me, much younger than me, that would like to, feel that security and that stability.
David, can
Oh,
I answer
Bo,
your
are you
question
saying
honestly?
that's you?
Yeah, I'm waving at you. You have a prime example right here of someone who's working for the community, and there's many others like me. I know we just hired a wastewater treatment plant operator who lives in Sturgeon Bay, who's been scouring for land for a home. There's people that want to work up here and they just need a place to live. That's been the biggest challenge as an administrator when we see this employee turnover and we look elsewhere for some professionals with college degrees and background that are coming from larger communities. They want to be up here, they just don't have anywhere to move.
I spent an hour today scouting properties for our new Gibraltar administrator. And that's teachers, it's everybody at Gibraltar schools. People can't afford to live north of Sturgeon Bay and there's nowhere to go.
One thing I would ask you to think about, Denise, when you say this is home ownership, and really it's dwelling ownership. To say that it's got to be that home is something that's been in everyone here. It's been just put into the essence of what we think about what the American dream is. So I think that ultimately what you're really getting at is you want people that are invested in the community, because they're also going to be invested in that house or whatever that is. I really think we need to let go of the concept of the only way to do that is to own a house. We need people that are invested in the community, that actually care, that benefit from the community. Now, as far as donating all of these, there's a couple things I could see why not doing that. One, Mariah said that they would need to, it would take a little bit to get the first one off the ground because they'd want somebody lined up. I would rather see us sell 2 of these, take the funds from that and start the building process right away, because I think if we build it, they will come. I believe that very strongly. And the other thing is not having all of these types of housing units in one place. So maybe the other land we're acquiring out, currently Liberty Grove, maybe some of it goes there as well. I'm not saying we shouldn't do all these units, and we should do as much as we can, because no matter what we do, it's not going to be enough. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't do anything. But just to make sure that we are, I've done a lot of research about zoning and planning all across the country. And one of the things that doesn't work is when you try and do affordable housing or low-income housing in a small area. You've got to integrate people into the community.
Mariah?
Mariah's got some.
Right. I'm gonna object, I think, just because there's a stigma attached with it. This is not low-income housing. These are your teachers, your firefighters, the Gibraltar administrator, the whoever it may be in Northern Door that's struggling to find, and maybe it's just the phrase that I'm objecting to, but I think, yeah, we're not talking about people who can't go out and get a conventional mortgage. We're talking about people that can't find somewhere to live in Northern Door County. And we would be absolutely ecstatic and thrilled and humbled if you decided to give all of them to us. I don't actually share, I think because it's not traditionally what people think of as low-income housing, I don't share a concern about there being a stigma attached to the neighborhood, whether it's 6 on one end or every other or the whole neighborhood. There's one in Madison where it's so desirable that they have a hard time keeping people out of it that are the whole neighborhood in Madison. It's like someplace that they didn't used to have an upper income, I don't think, to move in, and then they had to set one because people wanted to move there because it was just such a unique, vibrant neighborhood. So maybe I'm being naive, but I don't share that concern. I know that, if you're talking about like a big city where you've got like, public housing projects or things like that, where there's really consolidated poverty and all sorts of other issues, that's obviously an issue, but I'm not worried about it in this county.
I guess I'm looking at Sister Bay, and we've kind of done that with that Garrett property. We've already kind of tried to put people together. So I just want to avoid whatever else we can to do that, or at least not have the village be complicit in that anymore.
I hear what you're saying, Nate, and I do think there's some wisdom in the you know, there's never going to be enough concept that you said. What if we phase the donation as opposed to doing it like we recommend that the goal would be to donate all of the properties, but perhaps we begin with 6 as our recommendation and let the group figure out their systems, and then perhaps if all things are going well, then we plan to donate more, but we retain the property that we still own, so that if we decide to pivot, we have the option to. Just a thought.
Especially if nothing's going to happen immediately, what's ultimately going to be the benefit of doing it all immediately?
Right. I mean, it would give Mariah the ability to plan for all 12, and that would be a thought, but you know, if we did it all at once, but if we said, okay, well, the ultimate goal is to donate all 12, but we're going to start with 6 and go forth and plan for these 6, that's plenty to plan for. And then once we see the plan in action, then we can say, okay, here's the rest or something.
I would say if people really feel strongly that there's benefits to the community and the village, the community, the county as a whole, our neighboring communities, as well as Sister Bay, that in their vision, some of these lots would become affordable housing and some of the lots would become, you know, other types of homeowners doing their own thing. If we really think that's would be a benefit, then why not find out whether that spot is feasible for that? And if we pick a number of them to designate as a donation to the trust, let's actively put the other lots up for sale, or let's actively broadcast to the marketplace what's out there, how it can be chopped up and still retain sewer and water. What's the biggest lot out of what's remaining that somebody could buy? I think we may be creating an illusion that there is an appeal to a person wanting to buy a home, particularly a second home in Door County or Sister Bay. I think we're creating an illusion if we think that's an appealing spot for that type of buyer, who I believe is the main driving force in the increased lot sales that, you know, Lauren referenced and Mary Kay referenced. Now, I may be wrong, but you know, if that was a dynamic location for somebody of means looking to come up and add a second home to their life and to their family, or if it was a dynamic location for somebody wanting to build their own first home on their own, then while this market had been so hot, people would have made their way to the village and been knocking on the door and saying, hey, what's going on with these lots? I want to buy one. And to me, that just supports in some way how it's the right location to try and get it all set up for affordable housing. And you know, that's my final thought on that.
These are all really good. Oh, go ahead, David.
This is not a money question, but just out of the curiosity, if we wanted to re-CSM, I am a neophyte here. Obviously with a water line, you just never connect. But if we put sewer already there, I mean, it's like a huge deal to not connect it.
It's just wasted money.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, to
I
answer,
got something there.
it's stupid money. Okay, again, move on.
There's a lot to go into this. I mean, would you also waive impact fees to make this affordable? I mean, there's a lot more discussion that kind of needs to go into this.
I was just going to say, Mary Kay, this as an agenda item was us to be chiming. We've chimed a lot and there's a lot here. And I think this was really good discussion. I know personally, I'd like more time to research and think about it and work through some of the things that have been brought up, because these are all really good points and this would be a big consideration. So I agree with Mary Kay that there's a lot to chew on here.
Impact fees would be a village board decision, not plan commission.
And again, wouldn't you need to know that though, to make an informed decision? If the village board is going to waive those and make this truly attainable housing. I would also like to know, my only other question is, Mariah, you talked about Habitat being involved. Habitat hasn't done a Northern Door house in a decade at least. Is there a developer that's willing to get their feet wet in this? I mean, somebody who's crunched the numbers?
So Habitat actually did a house in Bailey's Harbor last year.
Thank you. I was
and-
not aware.
Yeah, and they are willing, if they have a family that wants to live in Northern Door, they're more than willing to do one in Northern Door. No one has given them, or they haven't been able to afford to buy land in Northern Door in recent years. But I think I actually originally had my hand up because I'm putting my land use services director hat on, because one thought that occurred to me, at least, and this is how we sometimes handle things at the county. If a lot has been created that was legal when it was created, so in this case, you let, I guess it was Keith Garrett, plat out these lots for whatever development was, and the village signed off on it and they got recorded. But if for some reason it's not considered buildable now, we let the whole bundle of lots go through a variance process all in one hearing. So you would have a public hearing whereby you'd be essentially giving them variances for the lot size requirement, and you could do all 13 of them in one fell swoop in one variance hearing. So I don't know if that would fit with your processes or not, but I know that's something that we've done similar things like that at the county.
I don't know.
I don't think we have anything.
I don't think we as the village could do a variance like that, because there would have to be proven hardship for each particular lot. Maybe the county operates a little different, or your criteria is different. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we do.
The variance process is statewide. Mariah, what do you use as your hardship?
Usually just that it's the benefit of the public good and the lots have already been created and the infrastructure is already in. And I think it would be something along those lines. It might be a stretch. It just occurred to me that might be an easier way than some of the other routes you were talking about. Maybe not.
So have we fleshed enough out to give us even more to think about? And we will continue this conversation then at next month's meeting. And Bo, I know that you included the map of the lots, but at next month's meeting, maybe you could share the map that you gave me with the dimensions of the lots, the square footage, how many acres there are, just so everybody can see the exact size and everything of that.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Would it
All
make
right.
sense, or is it
Denise,
possible?
is
to
there
have-
any way that this could be like a working meeting again, rather than, because I'm assuming that July Planning Commission is going to be insane. So is this something that could maybe come up as its own work session?
I think our insane plan commission agendas are
It's done?
temporarily over, aren't they,
Okay.
Bo?
July will be quiet from right now, from what I hear, but August will probably pick up again.
So maybe if we get through, if we can talk about this next month at our regular meeting, still have the work session on the zoning code, because we're the moratorium, unless we extend it, we should be finalizing that in August, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. And then if need be, then we could turn this over into a work session, also, if at that point in time. Did
Can
somebody
we-
else?
Yeah, I was trying to say something here. Can we pass this to the board? So there's some other board thoughts I have on this that involve money in that. And I think it might be worthwhile before we get too far down the path to make sure the board's on board for it in general terms, and ask some questions to say to Tasha and the like. So we don't, so we're not expending more time on this than we need to. Is that,
I was kind of thinking the same thing, if Nate, if we need to get some sort of a waving of the wand as to what the board considers feasible. You know, should we, is it, if we majority agree, donate all, are they in step with that? Or should we tone, you know, should we not shoot ourselves in the foot by doing a bunch of legwork and then it gets shot down? Denise?
I understand, Nate and Rob, your point on, you know, kind of bringing the board along at the same time. But the board also has a very different perspective, and I would almost hate for them to say they are willing or not willing to do X, Y, and Z and hinder our open conversation and debate on what the Plan Commission thinks is best. So I'm kind of torn there. Bo, do you have an opinion on that?
I understand both sides. I see where Nate and Rob are coming. I also see your side. I think what we were looking for initially was a Plan Commission recommendation. So I think what what would be most ideal was to have Plan Commission come up with an ideal recommendation, feel confident with it, and then let the board discuss.
And then we can pitch them the reasons why when we have all of our ducks in a row and a final recommendation. And
It sounds good to me, Denise.
Yeah.
okay,
then I can argue with myself some more.
excellent. I love that, Nate. Okay.
Thank you,
I'm just glad
Mariah.
we finally got
Thank you.
talking about this.
Thank you, Mariah.
Yeah,
Thank you so
Mariah.
much. Yeah,
Really-
we're really
Thank you,
excited. I
Mariah.
hope we can figure this out. Thanks.
Yes, I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on now to the zoning.
I'd just like to say thank you to everybody for finally getting this on the agenda and for us starting to talk about it.
Zoning administrators report. Bo?
I'll keep this brief. So there's been some updates since I've written this report. Goose and Twigs has their enclosure for the dumpsters about 85% complete. He did find a carpenter able to do the work. It's screened on 3 sides now. They still needs to put the opening, the doors on the front side of it. So he's still waiting. I believe he can have that done by the end of the week, but I will follow up and just make sure. Because I know Plan Commission said that if it wasn't done by the 4th, we'd start writing some enforcement letters. But I just wanted to let everyone know there is some significant improvement there. It's almost done. Another follow-up, I know I mentioned the alley, the outdoor bar. They were kind of violating some ordinances here that not necessarily pertaining to zoning code. But I did follow up on that, and this weekend they were not open past their deadline. So I did leave a voicemail. I never talked to the owners, so I'm guessing they got the message. So that was taken care of as well, but I will keep an eye on that. It's just important that everyone plays fair in the downtown district and meets the ordinances. I did send out 3 different letters to property owners just for maintaining that strip of green space. I know that was talked about in a different committee as well, but I just wanted Plan Commission to be aware. Enforcement letters are going out. From a permitting perspective, there's only been a single shed permit and a single sign permit since the last meeting. I just received plans for a new house, so I started reviewing that as well, but did not give the approval just yet. So there's some other projects going on in the works. And then on the bottom half here, just talking about what other things are going on besides the zoning side here. I did talk to Lance Crane, who said that they won't be ready for July, but we're anticipating to see some final plans go up that meet the conditions that were imposed in August. So we'll see that come back up. I've been waiting to see some plans for the Door County Medical Facility, but their schedules just keep pushing it back just a little bit. I'm hoping tomorrow to get in touch with them and to see some plans, some tangible plans to be discussed at the future Plan Commission meeting. I'm hoping July, fingers crossed, but I don't have an answer on that just yet. And then I did talk to representatives of the neighboring property owners from the Peach Barn. we're concerned about the operation going on next door, and I just, wanted Plan Commission to be aware that the Whites are, they plan on complying with everything in our municipal code and our zoning code. They plan on putting fencing up, doing anything that they need to be good neighbors, but I just wanted to pass along information that I had. Does anyone have any questions on my report?
I have an addition to your report because it's right across from where you live, across the highway. There's a feather flag out.
Okay, yeah, I can get that. I can get a letter out to get that down.
Okay.
Wasn't the former Glenn's Auto Body property zoned commercial?
Glenn's Auto Body.
The Peach Barn.
The Peach Barn, the Whites.
That was zone commercial, yes.
Okay, so why are the neighbors complaining?
Well, you have new neighbors back there from the, I forgot,
Oh, Mariners Point is behind there,
that was
right?
residential before, so you have new neighbors closer to it, but,
Plus a brewery is different than an auto shop.
so, but I mean, I look at it as a zoning administrator from my perspective and meeting with that family there. I mean, they have young kids. They have no desire to be an outdoor party place. That's not what they're looking to do. So.
I'd say your report should just mention one other thing that you mentioned earlier, Bo. You declared on June 22nd that July will be quiet.
Can only hope.
Promise?
It'll be a quick meeting. It'll be done in less than an hour.
Fingers crossed. That's all I can say.
Okay. Thanks for a great conversation again, everybody. See some of you next Monday at our work session at 6 o'clock. And is there a motion to adjourn at 7:06?
I
So
still move.
Motion by Gretzmacher,
Second.
second by Zashki. All in favor, respond with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Good night.
Thank you,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.